Welcome back to our second week in our Sunday school class. I'm excited you're with me. We're going to dive back into the Word of God. Last week, we saw where God created the heavens and the earth. God is the creator. And let me tell you, last week was pretty damaging for the theory of evolution. If you're a Christian, if you're a Bible-believing Christian, then you have to believe that the Bible's true. And if the Bible's true, evolution is false. Well, why would people come up with this theory anyway? Why would we teach this in our public school system? Why is there this two competing things, and why do you have so many scientists on one side saying that evolution is true and all these things evolved, and then you have other people like us to say, well, the Bible's true and creation is true? Well, you know, the devil has a counterfeit for everything that God does. And obviously the devil's just not going to agree with God on anything. And so he's come up with this theory. If you really dive into the history of the evolutionary theory, you know, Charles Darwin, we're not going to do that in this class because guess what? You get enough of that in public school. Public schools do a great job teaching evolution. And Darwin is the one that came up with it. And Darwin, man, he was not a Bible-believing Christian. And this is really where the root of it comes from. If you're people who believe in evolution, most of them are atheists, the people that have this thought process that there can't be a God, there isn't a God, so we have to come up with something else. We can't say that God's the creator. We can't say there is a God, so we have to come up with some other theory on how all this come into being. And so the interesting part about this to me is the more that science continues to improve and the study of science and the world around us, the more it proves the Bible's true, not evolutionary theory is true. So let's jump back in here. And we saw the first day. We finished up in verse 5. Let's jump into Genesis chapter 1 and verse 6. It says in verse 6, then God said, well, here we see it again, God speaking. A speaking spirit being, God. Well, you're a spirit being too. God said, let there be a firmament in the midst of the waters, and let it divide the waters from the waters. Verse 7, thus God made the firmament and divided the waters which are under the firmament from the waters which were above the firmament. And it was so. Isn't this interesting? So firmament, what does that mean, firmament? So the word firmament actually means an expanse. An expanse. And it's interesting the way it's worded here. He separated the waters from below from the waters above. Most creation scientists believe that the firmament was like a crystalline structure around the earth, like a canopy around the earth, you could say. And it was composed mostly of water. So there's water down here on earth, and now there's a separation, there's an expanse, and then there's waters above surrounding the earth. Now, the firmament, if you look up in the sky today, do you see a firmament? Do you see something up there? We know there's not anything around the earth right now, and most creation scientists believe that the firmament is actually what collapsed when the flood of Noah came about. Interesting. We're not going to get into that today, but if the firmament was made up mostly of water, then it would make sense how when that firmament collapsed that the whole earth would be flooded with water. So that God created this firmament and he divided the waters above from the waters below. And it says here in verse number 8 that God called the firmament heaven. So the evening and the morning were the second day, day number 2. Why is this important that God's numbering these things for us? Well, God's a God of order. And he knew that we were intelligent beings because he created us. And so he's laying it out step by step by step. This is what happened. This is what I did. You know, God knew we were intelligent beings and he knew that we could understand things. So he's just laying it out step by step by step, systematically going through what he did, how the earth was created, how everything was created, and when he did on the first day, the second day, third day, and so on. Now, why is all this important? Well, God's a God of order. God's a God of order, and he knew we would want to know these things, so he's laying it out for us. You don't have to understand how God did all this stuff. You're not going to understand it with your peanut brain. You need the Holy Spirit to reveal more of these things to you, because these things are just like, when I was a kid, we had pinball machines. And if you remember little pinball machines, you would hit the little side of them, and hit the little ball up. And they had this thing called tilt, because when you hit the machine, because you're trying to get the ball to go where you didn't hit it, the machine would tilt. And that when it went into a tilt mode, everything stopped working. And that's kind of how our mind gets sometimes when we start reading this and thinking about God's awesome, amazing power and the vastness of space and the universe. It's just like your mind just kind of goes tilt. But God's systematically laying this out for us. And the things that are here are things we need to understand. And why is it here? So we would know where all this come from. So God makes the firmament. And he called the firmament heaven. Now remember, we talked about the three heavens. There's the heavens, meaning the expanse of our atmosphere. That's the firmament here that he's talking about. Then there's the heavens that are in space. And then the third heaven, the Bible actually calls it the third heaven, is where God dwells. Heaven is a place. It's a real place. Look at verse 9. Then God said, let the waters under the heavens, so the waters that are under the firmament, the expanse that he created, let the waters under the heavens be gathered together in one place, and let the dry land appear. And it was so. So again, God wants something done. God wants something done on the earth. He's still creating. He's still doing things. And so God spoke. Man, there are power in God's words. And let me just stop right here and say this. When you put God's words in your mouth and you believe them in your heart and you speak them with your mouth, there's power. God is doing things. He's wanting to get things done on the earth. He's wanting to get things done in creation, and he's speaking words. Man, words are powerful. Words, now think about this for a minute. Words, for us, we use words mainly as communication. Mainly to communicate something or to talk to somebody. God's using words to create. Think about that for a minute. Let that make your brain go tilt. God's using his words differently. He's not using his words just to communicate. Yes, he was communicating things, but in that was the power to create. Your words are creative and powerful. Now look at this. He says, let the waters under the heavens be gathered into one place, and let the dry land appear. So the earth was just completely covered in water. And so God spoke words, and the water begins to move. And the water begins to pool up in one place, and now the dry land that was there, it says it appeared. The dry land that was there is now there, and it's visible. And notice what he said in verse 10, and God called the dry land earth, and the gathering together of the waters he called the seas. God gave them their name. God called the earth, earth. Wow, this is why we call it the earth. And the seas, where did we get that term from? God. And notice what it says here, and God saw that it was good. Everything God is doing here is good. Now this right here is powerful, because think about this. God created the heavens and the earth. He created the earth. And we're going to see as we get further into this creation account that everything that God creates now going forward is from the earth. He creates it from the earth. He pulls it out of the earth, the waters, from the dry land. He's going to bring it out. So when God created the heavens and the earth, and he created this planet, he put everything here that we would ever need. All the provision is here. And there's a lot of people that are doomsday people and, listen to the world, and the world gets into, global warming or climate change. It gets wrapped up in all these kinds of things and gets off track, really. I mean, it's a distraction from really the truth of the word. But, people get caught up in all these things and how we're polluting this planet. We're going to run out of natural resources if we don't do something. And if we don't drive electric cars or get a different alternative sources of energy, and you can't drill for oil because we're polluting the planet. See, all these thoughts are just ingrained in our culture, aren't they? It's just like, man, we're running out of natural resources. If I asked the average classroom today in public school, are we running out of natural resources? All those little kids would say, absolutely, we're running out. Are we running out? Are we actually going to run out? God is the creator, and don't you know that he knew we would be living in 2024? Don't you know he knew we would have cars, gasoline? Don't you know he knew all these things? He knew about it ahead of time, and when he created the earth to sustain us. For how long? Until it's done, until he comes back and remakes this place. There's coming a day that God is going to remake the earth. And guess what? When he does that, the earth will still be here. The earth will be here. People will be here. So you don't need to worry about running out of resources or anything like that. Now, that doesn't mean we're not to be a good steward of things. God put us here as stewards. There's a ditch on both sides, you could say. We need to be good stewards and not be wasteful of things. But, we're not going to run out. You don't need to live in fear. See, that's a lot of this theology, this thinking that of lack. We don't have enough, and God didn't put enough here for us. God put everything here that we needed. It comes from worldly thinking. All right, let me get back to this. So God said, let the waters under the heavens be gathered together into one place, and let the dry land appear. And it was so. God called the dry land earth, and the gathering together of the waters he called seas. And God saw that it was good. Everything God does is good. Verse 11. Then God said, let the earth bring forth grass. Let the earth bring forth. See, remember I said, everything now is going to come from the earth. Let the earth bring forth. That's talking about bringing it out of the earth. It's already here. He already created it. It's here. But now it's being brought out. Let the earth bring forth grass. The grass came from God, creation from God. The herb that yields seeds, and the fruit tree that yields fruit according to its kind. Well, that's an interesting phrase we're going to see a lot here repeated in Genesis as well. According to its kind. God creates things according to their kind, and when they reproduce, it's according to its own kind. Now, why would God say something like that? Why would this be in the Bible, according to its kind? Don't you know God knew there'd be this theory out there called evolution? And in this theory, people would say that things evolve from one species to another, and things evolve from a little amoeba, a little bitty single-celled organism, all the way up to you. Bing! Now you're a multi-celled, and you got all kinds of organs and emotions, and whatever. Okay. But God knew that was going to be the predominant way that the devil would use to convince people, lie to people, and tell them, hey, everything in nature evolves. Everything on this earth has evolved, and it went from one thing to another. God says when things reproduce, it's according to their own kind. And God said the fruit trees that yield fruit according to its kind. Well, we know that to be true today, right? An apple tree, if you plant an apple seed, you're going to get an apple tree, and then the apple tree will produce apples according to their kind. And notice what it says here, and the fruit tree that yields fruit according to its kind, whose seed is in itself on the earth. That's the interesting thing to me about fruit is you take fruit, and fruit has seed in it. Replenishing is there. Multiplying is there. In every fruit, you'll see seed. More seed to sow. And so from that fruit, in that fruit is more seed that will produce, guess what? More trees. And all of this was already here when God created the earth. God didn't he didn't create the earth and then he said, we need vegetation. Let me create vegetation. He didn't create the vegetation. He said, let the earth bring forth. It was a creative act of God, but the creation happened when God created the earth. Those things were here, and we spoke his words. The power of God went forth, and it brought those things out of the earth. Now, when the grass was growing here and the trees were growing, that, we're not waiting years and years and years. If you take a tree today, most trees, it takes years for them to become full grown. God created everything perfectly, and he created everything mature. Let me say that again. He created everything perfectly, and he created everything mature. So these are mature trees. These are full grown. We're not going to have to wait until they grow. God created them, and in that creation that come from the earth, he put the ability for these trees and the grass and all the vegetation we have to reproduce, replenish itself. God's not up there creating new grass. He's not up there creating new trees. He's not up there going, oh man, they're running out of trees. I've tried to tell them to switch and quit using so much wood. You're destroying all the wood. You're getting rid of all the trees, and there's not going to be enough trees. There is plenty here. Plenty. God put it here with the foreknowledge, knowing that we would live here and that we would use our brains and use the ingenuity that he placed on the inside of us to build things and to build houses and all the paper products and all these things that come from wood and other natural resources. God knew all this, and he planned for it. And when he created the earth, it's all here. And it's not just here, it's here in abundance. Man, you're not going to hear that in your science book, public school. It's here in abundance. We have all that we need. That's the way God does things. He gives us more than we need, an abundance of what we need. So let's look here. It says that, verse 12, and the earth brought forth grass, the herb that yields seed according to its kind, and the tree that yields fruit, whose seed is in itself according to its kind. And God saw that it was good. Verse 13, so the evening and the morning were the third day. Verse 14, then God said, let there be lights in the firmament of the heavens to divide the day from the night. Remember, he already created light. He already separated light from darkness. But then he put lights in the firmament, lights in the expanse. So what lights is he talking about? It says, let them be for signs and seasons and for days and years. And let them be for lights in the firmament of the heavens to give light on the earth. And it was so. This is interesting. So what is it that's in the sky that gives light to the earth? Well, the sun. The sun and the moon, right? The moon gives light at nighttime. Of course, if it's cloudy, you can't see the moon. But on a night where it's really clear and the moon, you see the moon it's bright. It'll illuminate even in the darkness. You'll still be able to see a little bit. Notice what it says in the next verse. The God made the two great lights, the greater light to rule the day, and the lesser light to rule the night. He made the stars also. Man, I tell you what, it's just so easy to read over this and just be like, yeah, he made the stars. Have you remember studying the stars in school? What is this? What is a star? Like, what makes up a star? These things are massive. These things are powerful. Man, it's like the best way you can really think about it, it's like a nuclear explosion going off constantly. That's probably maybe the easiest way to understand it. It's just this constant power that's being generated in a star. What kind of power does it take to create a star? Man, God is powerful, isn't he? And the same God that created the stars loves you. The same God with this power to create, a star loves you. And then we think about our little problems. We think about, I need some money to pay my bills. Or we think about, a sickness that's going around and I need to receive healing. Or we think about our little minute problems compared to creating a star. Are you kidding me? God is all powerful, and your little problems are not a problem for our big God. So it says that he made the sun and it says that the great light in the day is the sun, and the lesser light will be the moon. And he made the stars also, all the stars in the expanse of space, all the stars in the sky, God made. Let's look at what it says here in verse 17. Then God set them in the firmament of the heavens to give light to the earth and to rule the day over the night and to divide the light from the darkness. And he saw that it was good. So the evening and the morning were the fourth day. So this is the fourth day. He made the stars. He made the moon and the stars and all of the stars and the galaxies that are out there. God created. Now, let me tell you, space is vast. When you look up at the nighttime sky and you see these little twinkling stars, I got dogs trying to maul me here. When you look up at the sky and you see stars in the sky and you see twinkling stars and stuff, you realize that there's not just stars up there. There's galaxies up there. There's solar systems up there. There's many, many, many more stars and galaxies. And matter of fact, the scientists are just still trying to figure out how many are out there. You know, we live in the Milky Way galaxy. In our solar system, that all the planets revolve around the sun. You know, it's just one little solar system is just a part of the Milky Way galaxy. I mean, it's vast how many things are out there, how many stars. And if you look at, I would encourage you to do this, maybe some homework for this week. Go look at the Hubble Space Telescope, or they got a new one up there now. I forget the name of it, but there's telescopes they put in space that take pictures of space, and you can zoom in on those pictures. And when you zoom in and see these pictures, you see that, man, there's just galaxies everywhere. And each galaxy is full of stars and planets, and it's vast. And to top it all off, secular scientists will even tell you that the universe, all the galaxies and stars that are out there, the universe is still expanding. And not only is it expanding, it's expanding at the speed of light. Now, process that one for a minute. The universe is growing at the speed of light. Well, think back to what we studied last week. When God spoke, when he spoke things into existence, man, that initial creation, it's just still going. There's no end. It's still going. Things are still being formed and created out there. Isn't that crazy? I mean, it's just to think about the vastness, the power. Still today, we've got the technology now. We can actually study, and we know that the universe is expanding at the speed of light. That is awesome. God is awesome, isn't he? That's amazing. So that makes up the fourth day. And we're out of time again this week. We're going to pick it up here in verse 20 next week. Post questions that you have in the group, and we'll answer those questions this week. If there's other things that come up, you know, the questions that you've had about creation or anything that we've read, you can bring those things up. We'll post answers to those questions. We'd love to talk to you about that. I may post a few things in there just to kind of get the conversation going. But don't just take my word for these things. Study the scriptures for yourself. God is the creator. God is the creator of the universe. He's the creator of everything. He's the creator of the phone or the tablet that you're watching me on right now. You say, God didn't create this phone. Apple or Google or somebody created this phone. Well, all of the substance, all of the materials that make up that phone, guess where they came from? The earth. And God created the earth, and he created it in such a way that he knew one day you'd want a cell phone. And so the minerals are here, all the deposits are here, that we now have the knowledge to take these things out, put these things in a little package, and voila, you got a phone. And you can watch Sunday school on your phone. That's amazing. Love you guys. We'll see you next week.